Hi, this is Roger. Thanks for dropping by. A bit of kitchen time. Not a long one, I hope, but you know me. Cheers. Nice drop of Jolly Bow, or Bow Jolly. Quite nice. That's a new one. I haven't tried that before. Alright, we're going to have a go at this Ansellia africana, which is epiphytic, often found right up near the top of trees. It's a very highlight orchid and it's often found in dry areas, so it's not really a drinker. But always bear in mind they're talking about established plants in the wild, not necessarily young plants that need to be grown on. So the first thing we'll do is find out what's in my pot, and I've got a high suspicion this is in a plug and been plunked in a pot with bark, as suspected. I love it when a plan comes together. I've deliberately kept this dry. I don't know whether we're actually going to find any live roots, but what I'm hoping is that in underneath these two new canes here we've got signs of new roots, if not now then soon. I do dislike these tightly packed sphagnum plugs, but that's how they're grown. Often when they come out of the flask, they're grown in moss at that stage of their life, and at that stage of their life it's not too bad. But obviously that would be incredibly difficult to keep dry, you know, or to even allow to dry. It would take ages in a solid plug of moss like that. And this is one that grows in drier areas and does like to be dry between watering, so the moss has got to come off, and that is incredibly tightly packed. Nonetheless, it will tease out. Just keep plodding away at it gently. Try not to damage roots as you go. And keep looking back at your plant. Yeah, I did say there's two new canes here. Now at the moment I'm round the back of the plant. The chances of any new roots in this area are very slim. But we have got some nice white roots. So we've got roots. I'm obviously going to mount this. That could be a problem. I'm not actually sure if I've got any bark left. Just got a niggle in the back of my mind that I used the last piece. I have actually ordered some more, but it hasn't arrived yet. If the worst comes to this worst, if the worst comes to the worst, I'll just plonk this back in some bark, just to put the roots in something if I can't find a mount. This is quite a vigorous grower when it gets a hold, and in theory can grow quite large, not only in height but in width. It can form quite a dense clump, and this is where the new roots are likely to be, if I've got any. We've sort of got some what look like growing tips. I can't believe how tightly packed this is, but it's coming away. No, it's I mean, any residual moss that's left on here, I'll just run it under the tap and it'll rinse off. But I like to see what's going on before I start throwing it under the tap and can't see what I'm doing. So we have roots, quite fleshy roots, which is good. But obviously if I haven't got any new roots, it's not going to attach to the mount. You usually find older roots will not attach unless they branch, and this is a branching root system. Yeah, we've got branches in places, so often once, you know, if you've got active live roots and you mount something, they'll often branch, and then the branches will attach, pending new roots obviously. I don't see any direct new roots coming out from the base of those two new canes, but I think these are new roots in effect, so I think we're okay. We've got a couple of bits of bark, charcoal and stuff. Yeah, so we've got roots. I'm happy with that. Yeah, I'll stop fiddling about now on the grounds that this is just going to come straight off under the tap. one thing I was hoping to do was give it a spray with hydrogen peroxide. That's often why I keep teasing, so that I can spray the base of the plant. Once I've run it under the tap, the plant's soaking wet, and the hydrogen peroxide just doesn't work basically. It dilutes with the water you've just put on, and obviously if there's still moss around, the moss is going to hold a lot of water, and the hydrogen peroxide just won't do its job. So I'll keep teasing. We've got some dead roots here, but not many. Most of these roots seem quite active, quite pleased. You never know what you're going to get, do you? It's always a guessing game. And I will say now, but somebody said it was a minor criticism, I would say. My Phalaenopsis series was pot luck. It just was. The two that I got had good root systems. Well, I did sort of comment that if they hadn't got good root systems, I probably wouldn't have got them. But it was pot luck because I didn't look at the plants or the pots when I bought them. So I could have got them home and had bad root systems, and then the series would have been about trying to recover a root system, you know. But that's not what I got. You know, I'm not going to go around searching for plants with lousy root systems to do a video series. That's not how it works. At the end of the day, I do have to live with those plants. But I was just lucky. That's all I can say. I was lucky that they had good root systems. I was lucky that there were two plants in one of the pots, not one. You know, I mean, that wasn't something I looked for. That's just how it happened. That's not a bad root system at all. What I will probably have to do is take some of the central root systems out, because if I'm going to mount this, I've got to decide, you know, is it going to go like that on the mount? Is it going to go upside down? In this case, no, that's not how it grows. Or do I try and wedge it flat? It's probably going to go like that, with the latest two growths at the front of the plant and the oldest part at the back, so that effectively I'm squashing the old roots, not the new ones, and then we'll just hope for new roots to get down into the in and whatever moss I put on. Right, I shall give that a spray with the hydrogen peroxide, give it a run under the tap, and then we'll have a trim, because we do have some dead ones, but like I said, not many. Quite pleased. So I'll be back. Just before I go, that's the size of the pot. There was an amount of bark, which is quality bark. That is rock hard. It's a shame to waste that. In fact, I might even give that a rinse off and reuse it. But just look at this. Look at the sheer volume of moss that's opened up into. Now, that moss is not off. It's okay. It was just too tightly compact. You know, I mean, I could plant 2 or 3 Masdevallias in that. The amount that was actually compressed into that plug. That's the only thing that's wrong, is the compactness. It shuts out the air. It doesn't allow the roots to breathe, which is what epiphytes need. So, sheer volume of moss, absolutely incredible. And if that had been loosely packed around the plant, it would have been fine. But we haven't had a root loss as a consequence, so that's good. Right. As before, I'll be back. Okay, given the plant a bit of a clean up, I will do a root trim, but it's not going to get much of one. It's just a matter of around the back of the plant, these roots are just gone. No point in leaving them, especially as they'll be trapped around the back of the plant. It's just a matter of feeling round and finding the dead ones. And with the use of some very pointed and accurate scissors, I can just take out the roots I want to take out and not take the 2 or 3 either side or behind. It's quite important if you do root trimming, is to have something that cuts where you want and not where it wants. You know what I mean? Scissors have a mind of their own, especially in amongst tight roots like that. See that dead root there, I can just cut the one root. It's quite important to just be able to do the one you want and aim. Obviously it requires reasonable eyesight, which without my glasses I wouldn't have, but with them it's good. I'm not doing bad for an oldie actually. I mean, my hearing's better than most, my eyesight's still pretty good, and I still move about reasonably well. So doing okay as things go, and grateful. Listening to somebody at the Orchid Society, well, they unfortunately were trying to listen to several people talking at once, which is always a bit rude, but it just happens at meetings, you know. Everybody wants to get their bit in at the point it's relevant, because often if you leave your sentence till later it sort of loses the point you were trying to make. But the poor guy really could not hear, and so he was missing out on some quite important points because several people were talking at once, and his hearing's not up to it. We'll all get there one day. I'm sure one day my hearing will be poor, but at the moment it's doing okay. Something I'd hate to lose, I must admit, because although I don't do it very often, I really do like listening to music, and to deprive myself of bird song and music and things like that would be quite a downer. I think that's probably about it. There's a couple of newer roots that look damaged there, but I've just taken the ends off, the broken ends like that. And it is a branching root system, so in theory, where there's any damage, it'll shoot out, and we should get some new roots off of older roots. Now, new roots I did expect to come from the two new canes, and I have got some. If you look here, there's a growing tip there, and there's a growing tip there. So some of these roots do have growing tips. A lot don't. But we'll see what we can do. As I said, if they're not damaged or broken or snapped anywhere, and I've missed them, they can branch out. Right, so just get me muck out of the way. And we've got some surgery to do on the mount. This is a ridiculously large piece of wood for the size of the plant, but apparently it grows quickly and vigorously. So the theory is that it will fill that mount one day. Not today, but one day. I've just noticed, I'll use my screwdriver, although this has had boiling water poured on it, it hasn't washed everything out of these crevices. There's dirt in here. I think it's dirt anyway, but it's something that I'd rather wasn't there. It doesn't matter, quite honestly. It's sterile, whatever it is now, having had boiling water poured all over it. But as I can see it, we will hook it out. Doesn't happen often, but that is a very deep crevice there. Almost goes right through. Right, so looking at it, it's a very large piece. If you look round here, it's got a very large, chunky, thick piece curling round. That could have been cut off. Yeah, I could have just taken that piece off, but it wouldn't have been much good for anything. So it'd just as well stay there. Maybe it will have a use down the line. But what I've got is a concave centre. Yeah? Which means either that bit or that bit is going to press against the plant when I try and pull it against there. So what I'm going to attempt to do is take some of it off. You don't normally have to do this, and you don't have to do it, but I'm just going to try and take some of this off so that it's not rubbing against the plant. It's just getting into the surface along this top edge, really. That's all I'm doing, and it'll take that ledge off of it. Also makes it look a bit more natural. They do look quite abrupt when they've been sawn off like that, you know. But I mean, if you've taken the piece off of the side of a tree and it's 8 foot long and you want to sell it in 1 foot pieces, then you've got to cut it up. Quite honestly, it does break. If you put a saw line across the back of this cork bark and then hit it hit it hard against an abrupt surface. I use the arm of the bench in the garden. So you literally put a saw cut like that, yeah, and then just hit it hard like that on a ridge, and it will snap, and it will have a much more natural look to it than a saw cut. Trouble is, sometimes it breaks in several places, not just in the place you want. You take that risk. But that's the idea, is to just get rid of that area that was sticking out, and preferably not in my wine. In fact, I think that'll probably do now. Just wanted to, you know, just so that the plant's not actually abruptly up against what is quite a large edge. Yeah, let's just taken that edge off. Okay, and the plant can sit in this recess quite nicely. Quite happy with that. Dead bits in here. Oh. I might take them off. They're just dead. Not, you know, not firm, not. Don't normally have to clean up my mounts, but it's quite an old piece. I've had it a while. Right, so that's got a nice mess everywhere now, hasn't it? Luckily it hasn't gone on the floor. Right, so positioning the plant, first job. I really would like to take that corner off. It's a great big thick chunk of nothingness. This is adding a lot to the weight, but not now. So I want the plant sat quite low down with the two new bits at the front, and taking out that ledge along the top that was sticking out has actually worked quite well, because that plant now sits quite comfortably in that little recess. Yeah, and I've even got one new root touching the mount with a growing tip, so quite happy with it positioned there. Right, now what I've got to do is find out where the hanging point is, because it's lopsided. If I put my wire dead centre, it's going to be lopsided because there's a lot of weight in that corner. So I'm just trying to find the balance point where it will remain upright, and it's about there. Right, so we'll make our hole about there. Oh, ooh, that's a thick piece. This is going to be fun trying to get the next screwdriver through. That's just a normal type screwdriver. Blade type screwdriver with the blade sharpened. The idea being is that when it's twisting, it's forming a cut, and then what I do is I use a crosshead screwdriver to bite through that hole and make it bigger so the wire goes through nicely. This is a very hard piece of cork. Oh, very hard. Oh. A bit of brute force going here. Does that come out the other end yet? Nope. Now it has. Right. Now if it will come out again. Oh, crikey. Oh. That is a very hard piece of bark. I don't think I've had to work that hard on a piece of bark for a very, very long time. That warrants a sip, that do. Right. Let's get some wire on the go. This is going to have to hang in the roof. The plant is capable of growing quite large, so there's no point in having a tiny little hook, is there? I need quite a long hook, yeah, to allow the canes to get longer. This plant is infinitely variable both in flower colour and actual cane size. I presume I can call them canes, pseudobulbs, one of the two. It's quite, if you look at it, it's got quite a dendrobium look about it. It isn't, obviously, it's a unique species, a one-off, but it does have a look of dendrobium about it. These nodes on the, I'm going to call them canes, I'm not going to call them bulbs, they're very dendrobium-like with the sheaths. Yeah, so anyway, it isn't. There ain't no dendrobiums in Africa. Come on, brain, think. Other side. Can't see the hole. I'm going to have to go in from that side because I can't. Ah, now I've got it. I want to go in from that side, that was all. I couldn't see where the hole was and I still can't. I'll have to do it again. Put my finger on the end of it. Messing me about here. Gotcha. The reason being, I want the hook to go up the back of the mount, not the front. Right, now all we've got to do is get enough of the wire through to come round and grab hold. That should be about enough. The hook is miles too long, but not to worry. I'm just going to pinch that with the pliers to stop it wobbling, but probably wouldn't anyway because it's quite stiff wire. Right, now I've got a long dangly piece of wire here and I've got no idea how long I need to leave that. So what I might actually do with that is, no, it won't go through the rack. I was going to say, if I bend it in half so that I've got quite a short hook now, I'll just have to change the hook if I need to. I don't want to work with that amount of wire sticking out the top, but I'm going to leave it as long as I dare. That'll do. Right, let's get my wine out of the way. Knocked a whole glass of wine all over a plant and all over the worktop once with that bit, the sticky out bit. Just picked up the thing and just knocked the whole lot over. Okay, right. Let's get to it. Plant first. Yeah? I don't want moss underneath the roots. I want the plant against the mount. One broken root. I hope that wasn't one of my new ones. It might have been one that just got snipped and didn't fall out. Right, that'll do. Slightly over there. That's a bit better. Spread the roots a little. As I said, if they branch, they will attach, so we'll spread them out so they've got a chance to do that. And if they attach, they will grow better and faster. So we'll spread them out a bit. And then what we'll do is we'll get our fishing line and grab hold of that before we put the moss on. I'm going to need, this is an enormous mount. Each turn is going to use, what's that, 8 inches, 16, 17, 18, 19, it's nearly 20 inches a turn. And if I go around that way it'll be more. It's a massive amount of fishing line this is going to use because of the sheer size of the bark. Which may mean I haven't got enough and I'll have to go back and get some more. But in theory it's only going to take a couple of turns to hold this in place. I don't trip over it, it's all around my feet now. Right, and we will go around the short distance, I think. Come on. Right, can I get over a couple of canes? Possibly. I'm just going to tuck that in through some of the canes for my first loop. And my first loop's going to be vertical, not horizontal for a change. I'm going to go around the top. Actually, I'm going to go over that one as well. I'm going to go over two. Two with leaves and two without leaves, so that's virtually down through the middle of the plant. That should give me a good hold. Fiddly, but worth doing, I think. Right, where are we then? Right down through the middle, I reckon. Oof, gotcha. Actually not, I want that roughly in the middle. Right, so that's the plant. It's actually quite secure. That's not bad at all. Right, spread my roots out again, and then we'll put some moss on. I don't want a lot of moss, because I need this to be able to dry relatively quickly. But different to what I often do, is I am actually going to spread some moss out where there isn't any roots, for the roots to get into longer term. If this is going to be a vigorous grower, it's going to spread. And okay, when it spreads, it will happily just attach to the mount with no moss. But it does mean the roots will then dry incredibly quickly. And at the moment, from experience, when you get white roots, that when you pour water all over them, they don't turn green, it means they take a fair bit of hydrating. But these roots were in moss. Was it compacted moss? Yes. Did they ever see any daylight? No. That's why they're pure white, rather than the fact that that's the way they may normally be later on with the new ones that come out. If new roots come out and extend onto the mount, those are the ones that you'll be able to tell whether they're going to be quick hydrators or slow. I've got some orchids that just, you can pour water over and over and over and they just will not go green. And then after quite a while they do start to go green. And I've got other orchids, as soon as the water touches them, they're green. They absorb immediately. But they're not all like that. And it's a nuisance when you've got some of those that just don't hydrate quickly. I wonder if I've actually got enough to go round enough times. So that's my moss held on the right hand side of the hook. Well, we've still got acres on the floor, I reckon we're going to be okay. Now we'll come round this side of the hook. Notice I'm doing this vertically. It doesn't have to be done horizontally. It normally is, simply because the mounts are often taller than they are wide. This one's wider than it is tall. And I'm already getting all tangled up here. Let me just pull the end through, because I'm hooked up here. Come on, that's got it. Then we'll go round there, where those roots are. Pull it all through again. I've actually got too much, I didn't think I'd have enough. Never mind, we'll pull it through. Right, so we've done quite a few turns vertically. Now what I want to do now is put at least one round horizontally. So I've now got to find somewhere for this to catch on. Like there. In fact, there's a lovely gnarly bit of bark there. If I just loop that round there, and then bring it across, I only need one to go horizontally, and I've got everything in place now. Now, does the plant lean forward? No. Excellent. So that is it. That's all the turns I need to get what I want. Now I can get rid of all this excess that's now tangled around my sandals. Okay, now we just need to tie off. Where's my V? There it is. It's the beauty of starting with the loop. When you do your first turn, you create a V, and it's a very, very good place to come back and tie onto, because you've already got a knot there. So you've got something to grab hold of, something to tie against. So I'm just going to put one knot there. There's a very good reason for that. I'd actually like to keep that. This was a gift, yeah? And sometimes labels are special, you know, when you've got a plant from a particular person, or like a gift or something like that, and the tag reminds you of that. If I just do one of my own tags, that memory's lost, isn't it? So I'm going to use the one that came with it, despite it being upside down on the back of the mount. Still readable. Right, so we just I made a hole in it so that you can get an end through. Let's see what the hell I'm doing. There we go. We just tie that on, and then we have a tag. I don't think I'd ever forget what this one is, seeing it's the only one. There we go. And have a look and see what it looks like from the front. Hopefully that's yeah, that's looking quite good. I've got one new cane going right up through the middle of the plant itself, and another one heading off slightly to the right. And it's highly likely that the next new growth will be here from this cane, but this one could push out here or round there, or both. It just depends whether all these words of wisdom that say how vigorous it is are actually true or not. And a vigorous plant may not be in your environment, yeah? If it's not happy, it ain't going to be vigorous, is it? So we'll see what we can do with that. I'm quite pleased that I've got that. It's an unusual plant. And I'm pleased with the root system. I'm pleased with the fact I've got a couple of new growths. We can watch those and see how well they progress. And let's go and find it somewhere to live in the grow room. Now this is a highlight orchid. Not yet. It's not established. It's not ready to go. It's had several changes of environment. It was probably imported, so it's come from one side of the world to the other side of the world. That may have gone to a holding area with one environment. It may then have been bought directly by speciotic plants, so it's now gone to their environment to be looked after for a while. Then it got transported to the show, and then it got transported back here, and then it's been sat in a pot for a while. So it's not settled. It just doesn't know whether it's coming or going yet. So it's not going to get high light yet. I'll just put it in some lower lights level just to keep it going, just to let it get settled down a bit, and then gradually we'll introduce it to the brighter light that it needs. We'll see how we go. So I'll be doing progress reports on this. As it's a one-off, there's no point in getting another one, is there? But they have a hell of a variety of flower colours and patterns. So you could actually make a collection of these, even though they're all the same plant. The blooms can be incredibly different. So, you know, if you manage to come across somewhere that's selling a lot of them that were in bloom, you could get 3 or 4 different blooms on the same effective species. So anyway, we'll see how we go. I've mounted one for a while, but that's nice and firm, nicely attached. Yeah, they seem to do better if they're nice and firm on the mount. And we'll see which root is the first one to poke out the end of the moss. See you next time. Thanks for dropping by.